Today on Think Smart with TMFG, Mike and I are going to be discussing things to think about before doing anything yourself.
I think I should write a book on this. I went and thought about doing things yourself, and one day I was just thinking things you should consider before doing things yourself to make it, because there are definitely some things you can do yourself, and there are some things you shouldn't be doing yourself. So I came with a bit of a test scenario. So I have a few questions that you have to ask before you take on any task. And I know you're going to like this because you like delegating tasks. So,
Well, let's explain, and we've talked about this before. I'm a delegator. I love delegating things. Mike likes to figure out how everything works, so he likes to do it himself. And I think it was your father who messed you up by saying you can do anything.
yeah. So I've been trying, but I felt there's a few problems that happen along the way. So things you should consider when you go to take on any task or you want to take on something to do yourself. Number one, do you enjoy that task? Make
Really
sense?
important. Yep.
Do you like doing it, or is it something that you're just doing to save money, right? The next thing is, do you have time? So do you have time to go and take this on? We all have busy schedules. Maybe when I'm retired, I'll have more time to do things. But as of right now, my time is a little bit limited. And the time, not only work, when you do other things, time comes from family time, which is very important too. Next one is, do you have the skill set to do this? Again,
It's a big one.
big one. Do you have the skill set to accomplish this? We all want to do these things in the world, but sometimes you're just not, you don't have the knowledge, or number two, you just don't have the natural skill set to do it. I'd love to be an artist, but hey, it doesn't work for me. I can't draw a fence with a pen and paper. A fourth one to consider that I think is very important that most people don't consider is the damage you can do if you do it wrong. And that's a big one, and that's something to consider. So what I did was I tried to put some things together to look at different things you can take on yourself and go and put it through the test.
Well, it's interesting you bring up this subject because there's a few things I've done recently where I've delegated. Now, I've done it before, but I've moved on to delegation. So one, my wife wanted to get garage floor cleaned. So we've got this rubber garage floor. It's really dirty over the winter. There's 2 cars coming in and out. There's snow. And, there's all kinds of things you need to move. I have gone in and done it, and it's a half day to do it properly.
Yeah.
So she asked me to do it, and I said, no, let's find another solution. So she called around, found a friend's son who's, typically in the gardening business and so on.
Yeah.
He came by and said, yeah, I think I can do that for $500.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, $500, it saves me a morning. It's not cheap. So he comes over, he gets it done. It was $300.
Yeah.
He had 2 guys come in. They did a great job. It looks like brand new, and we're never going to do it ourselves again.
So when you go through the test with that, did you enjoy it?
The first time, it wasn't horrible.
Yeah.
But I got soaked. You got
Yeah.
the hose, you got the brush. You
It's
got to
not a
really
wor-
push hard on the brush.
If it's not a worm day, it's not a great thing to do.
No, at this time of year, April, it's still freezing cold out.
Did you have the time?
I have the time, but it takes away from other time.
Things, yeah. Do you have the skill set? As you said, probably not as good as they did.
I didn't have the equipment that they did. They
Yeah.
had better equipment. They had better cleaning solutions, better. I have a power washer. They get a more powerful power washer.
The one good thing is the damage you could do from doing it yourself isn't that bad.
It's a garage floor.
It's garage floor.
Maybe I didn't get it to 100% like they did. Maybe I get it to 80, 90%. It would have been good. It just meant, it wasn't as nice as doing it. So now we're never going to do the garage floor again.
I know you do like doing a bit of gardening, right? You actually enjoy gardening. So that's a checklist where you get some enjoyment out of it, right?
I do. I do.
Have you got decent at it over the years?
I'd say I'm good. I'm not. People think the gardens look great, but I get help.
Yeah.
I don't like weeding. It's not my thing to do. I don't like going in and cutting back flowers and doing like that.
So you've created some time by hiring and delegating some people in
So
there.
at the cottage and at home, I have someone who comes in once a week and touches it up. Now, I'm still the guy who buys the plants and plants stuff.
Yeah.
But even recently, I was thinking of, at the cottage, I've planted so many different plants, it might be helpful to have someone come in and help me figure out a plan.
And I guess along the thing we were talking about before, what's the worst can go wrong? You have an ugly garden.
Well, no,
Right.
I mean, flowers are going to look good. You just
Yep.
might have a better looking garden
Yep.
if you got some help. But you're right. It's not like you could kill your plants.
Yeah.
if you put, the wrong chemicals on. But that's a good idea. If you love gardening, you're out in the garden all the time, it's great. But if I'm spending all my time gardening, then I'm not golfing. So I got priorities.
Yeah.
Golf first, gardening second.
So it's enjoyable, but not that enjoyable. Let's go to one that's a little bit different. Let's talk about car repair. I guess that one get a little bit more dangerous, doesn't it?
Very dangerous.
Yeah.
You could really mess up your car.
And I've done the brakes on my car before, and it's worked okay. But thinking back on it, I don't know if I'd do it again, because I started to put that through my test. And I went through and said, did I enjoy it? It was okay. I had the time. I thought it was going to take me, when you leave it in the mechanic shop, you get your brake job done in, 2 hours? I was, I think, 12 hours doing my brakes. So it took a lot more time than I thought.
A little more than a day?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's my skill set. I'm okay, but that's not what I do for a living, so I'm not great. And then you get to the danger side of things. If it
So
went
you're
wrong,
putting your family in the car where you just did the brakes.
Yeah.
Or maybe your daughter's going to take your car out and you just did the brakes.
Yeah. So probably not the best thing to do. So I've rethought that one, and probably future brake jobs are going to be done in shops.
But even the brake job, are you always going to go to the cheapest guy to do your brakes? Is that the right strategy either?
Yeah, I did that once, and I would never do it again. I did that about 25 years ago. I went to, I don't want to say, I guess it was a mechanic that worked at a Canadian Tire type instance, and I always drove Toyotas, which are great running cars. And ever since I got the brakes done by Canadian Tire, I had a Toyota with Canadian Tire brakes. And it felt like every time I put my foot on the brakes, I could feel the difference. So sometimes you get what you pay for. I do a lot of home renovations. It takes a lot of time, right? I find it very rewarding when you do things yourself.
Yep.
I do get a good sense of reward from it.
Especially the finished product,
The
right?
finished product is
Looks
great. And expertise is based on, this is a difficult one because it's training and experience. So from my experience lately, there are some things you can do, right? And there's other things that they're almost like an art. I don't know if you ever tape drywall. Whenever they do drywall, they tape all the joints. You realize after you start to do it, it's more of an art than anything else. It's not a simple thing to do. If you have to do anything like bricklaying and things like that, those are actually real skill sets that take an artwork to do. When you do it yourself, it's going to look lousy. That's how it comes. So there's things like that.
So interesting story here. So my mother-in-law, who has since passed, she didn't have the financial resources, so she did a lot of things herself. And the only problem with that is it looked like she did everything herself. Now, she was a great gardener, but home renovations, not so good. And it was interesting because my wife was just recently at a party, and she went into this house, and she had flashbacks. She felt like she was in her mother's house because she could see all this work that was done. And she pointed out there was this bathtub that someone had put some wood paneling in the bathtub. And she said, that's just something my mother would have done. It looked horrible.
Yeah.
It probably felt horrible when you're in the bathtub.
Yeah.
But so a good example of something you should do. Now, if you really love doing home renovations, by all means do it.
And there's
What about damage?
The damage when you get into things like electrical. Now, electrical, it might be simple to do an outlet, but sometimes it's not that simple, right? I always, it's funny, whenever people go to wire kitchen outlets, I always see them blow up their fuses because kitchen outlets are wired differently. I've learned that over the years, but I learned it through bad experiences. And, if you screw up electrical, you can burn your house down and kill someone. Even plumbing, when you get plumbing, seems like how much damage can I do in plumbing? If you have plumbing done wrong, you can actually get gray water or dirty water into your actually sinks. So you got to make sure everything's set up the right way. It's got to be very careful whenever you do that. And with this, I'm not even including the injuries you can do while trying to do these tasks. When you have people that aren't used to using saws and things like that, they can really hurt themselves.
So the more you speak, the more I want to delegate. That's all I'm thinking. I'm not taking on anything. I had some plans for projects this summer, and I'm beginning to think I may
You like all your
get
fingers?
some help. Exactly. Like it's just not worth it. What's up next?
What about taxes?
I used to do them many, many years ago, and I stopped very quickly because I didn't enjoy it, number one.
And programs are pretty good right now, even though they are.
They're really, a lot of them, you can just enter the stuff.
But who really enjoys doing taxes? I don't find many people.
No, I don't even enjoy collecting the data. We talked about that in a previous podcast.
To actually do the tax returns would just be a nightmare. And what happens with taxes, too, is you don't really know what you missed. You do the taxes and it tells you everything's good. The government says that everything's fine. But the key is you could have got a lot more deductions than you knew. You may have moved to a location that's closer to work. You may be eligible, or a family member be eligible for a disability tax credit. You know, you might be taking care of your mom and you didn't realize she has a disability tax credit available. That can be passed on to yourself. There's all these things that you can meet with an accountant with, and they can tell you all these different areas to save in taxes that you would have never even known about.
So you were discussing something earlier today. We were in the bullpen talking, and you were talking about a tax slip that arrived late. So let's imagine you spent the weekend in between maybe watching the Masters, which was last weekend, and you did your taxes. And you're really proud, you got them submitted to the government, and then on Tuesday you get a new slip in the mail. Whose problem is that now?
Yeah, it's now your problem.
It's now your problem.
Yep.
If you've had someone else do the taxes, whose problem is it?
It's theirs. I just take a shot, send it to my accountant's done.
What's up next?
This is something you have a lot of experience with, book and travel. We've talked about this in the past. It gives me a ton of stress. You're way better than I am. Even we have to do a trip together. I leave it all to you because I hate book and travel. What are the dangers involved in that?
Well, we were just on a trip together.
Yep.
I use Avis for my car rentals, and I'm pretty good. I go on the app and I book the car. So we get down to the Avis booth, and there's a board. We use Avis Preferred. It doesn't cost anything, so I always sign up for those extra things. And I look, and there's 20 names, 30 names on the board. My name's not there.
Yeah.
So I go up and I say, well, I know I reserved a car. I got a reservation on my phone. It's right here. She goes, well, in fact, you reserved 2 different cars.
Yeah.
I go, what do you mean I reserved? So we canceled both of them.
Yeah.
So anyways, after, we were there 45 minutes trying to get out of the airport. And eventually we got out of the airport with the car, but not the car we wanted, not the car that was on my app, not the car she told me I was going to get. We probably got the worst car we could possibly get.
Yep.
It was only for 4 days. We survived.
But even from it being, you do a lot of it, even from expert, you're going to run into problems. And, it can even get worse than that. When you start to do more complex travel and you want to go, say, in safaris, or you want to go to Africa or different lands to go see, you have to know what's safe, right? And a lot of people don't know that. Unless you're a very experienced traveler, if you go to a good travel agency, they're going to say, hey, you got to really watch it over there. You need guides. You can't just go into that part of the world and like that. So that's important to know when you're doing that stuff.
Even things like location. A hotel may look great, but it may not be near anything. It may be far from the airport. It may be in a bad part of town. And that's easy to make. Like the hotel looked great, got a great rating, all kinds of things. But you have to do that deeper dive on stuff to make sure you don't make those mistakes. You're going to make them initially, and then you'll say, never do it again.
Yeah.
There was one time we rented one of our first Airbnbs. Thought, okay, everyone's doing this. It seems to be the thing. We did it. We were down in the States. We were on a beach. We didn't know it was a rock beach. We didn't know that it was the cold side of the island.
Yeah.
We were stuck there for a week. So, anyways.
Other things that people do that sort of blow me away, I hear some people homeschool children, and I have great respect for teachers. Teacher is a real professional, and people decide to go and try to teach the kids at home. The teachers have gone to school for many years to learn how minds work, how kids learn, how to get to their brain and make them understand things. Some people think, well, I know more than the teacher, so I'm just going to go teach my kids. But you may have knowledge, but you don't have the ability to teach, too.
We've had a few friends over the years who've taught their kids. Without judging, I'm not sure the results were what they had hoped for.
Yeah. Number one, socialization is a big part of education. And it's very tough to keep the socialization level you do being in a school. And what people hate to admit is you can only teach to your knowledge level. I'm a good mathematician, but my English skills are I'd have trouble teaching an above ninth grade.
How many
English
years have you been on this planet?
Too many.
And you've been speaking English the entire time?
That's about all I have.
There we go. Next up is housework. Do you enjoy housework?
No.
We run a clean house. Right now we're empty nesters. There's just 2 of us. Wasn't quite the case when we had 5 of us in the house, but we're down to 2. We keep a pretty clean house. But I hate it when I come home and my wife's doing housework. I don't know why. I don't like it. B, she'll often clean the house before the cleaning. So we have a cleaning lady once a week now. She'll clean the house before the cleaning lady arrives. I don't understand the logic of that.
Yeah.
But by delegating it, we have someone get into the places we may not.
Yeah. But the time can be excessive. And also, as we talked about before, I don't see a lot of stuff. My wife is very, everything is always perfect in her house. And thank God she's there, because I don't see the things she sees. And, it's just looking into corners, looking into places I would never dream to look. I don't go crawling underneath the couch looking for cobwebs, but it's nice that someone does.
You do house cleaning on a regular basis. I think you got a skill set. You know how to do it faster. You know how to do it better. Now, are all the people who do that created equally?
Yep.
Certainly not.
Cooking. That's something a lot of people actually do enjoy. I enjoy cooking, actually. So it's something that's pretty good. You know, the time doesn't feel too bad when you're cooking because it's actually an event. A lot of time I'll cook with my wife. We're doing something together. It's quality time together. The other thing I find, too, is it's one of the few things where home chefs can sometimes be better than restaurants.
Definitely.
And you get meals at home taste better than you would in a restaurant. So that's actually one that's pretty good to take on yourself if you have the ability. There is always a danger, too. You need a certain level of experience and know-how to be able to cook things. And you have to know, you don't want to give anyone salmonella or any type of things like that. You have to know the basic rules of cooking.
You know, if we're entertaining a couple, I think we can cook our own meal. If we're having 15 people over for dinner, if we've got the resources,
Yep.
I might want to get some help,
Yep.
right?
And that way you can actually enjoy the dinner rather than just be cooking it.
You're running, if you're cooking for 15, all you're doing, you're missing the evening.
Yep.
Right? Your friends are having a good time, but you're not.
I've done it and I'm exhausted at the end of the day.
What about managing money?
Well,
Good idea?
Let's go through our test list.
Okay.
Number one, do you enjoy doing that more than anything else you can be doing?
I would say 1 or 2 out of 10 people enjoy managing their finances, paying bills.
What about time? Not just the time to manage things, to track all your transactions, keep track of all your bills, to do everything to do with finances. Spend time to look at your plan, to spend time to go through all your investments, look for new strategies. How much time is that?
We all have 24 hours.
Yep.
Got to sleep for hopefully at least be in bed for 8 of them, whether you're sleeping or not. That's another matter.
Yeah.
We're now down to 16 hours.
Yeah. So it's a lot of time. Also, when we go to skill set, now skill set has two things. It's both educational skill set. Do you have the education to do it? What do you specialize in? Is your knowledge in? Also, do you have the temperament to do that? That's a second piece that's just as important as knowledge is temperament. And some people don't have that.
Let's go to your last one. I always like your last one. Can you do any damage?
Think about the damage you can do to your future and your family's future. If you make a severe mistake in your finances and you decide to put everything in a stock that goes wrong, or you have the wrong mix on your portfolio and you're not achieving what you planned on achieving, and your retirement starts to fall apart, what type of damage can that do to you and generations beyond you?
So let's use an example over the last 12 months.
Yep.
Last year was a great year for the Magnificent Seven.
Yep.
Right? We've talked about them before. We talked about them in a podcast. Great companies, Google, Amazon, NVIDIA, Microsoft. How do you think they're doing as of the date of this podcast, April 17th, I think today is?
Oh, it hasn't been a good year for them. I'd say
They are down 23%
23.
on average. On average.
Yeah.
7 of the biggest global companies in the world.
And some of them are down by 50%.
And the market's not even anywhere. It's down, but it's down 10% versus 23.
Yeah.
So you may have finally last year thrown in the towel and put those Magnificent 7 companies in your portfolio.
It seemed pretty simple. Just only 7 companies that they're magnificent, right? You don't have to worry about anything else.
And you and I have the advantage of seeing mistakes. So a new client will come in. We get to see their statements. We can see the mistakes. Well, at least we can see the current mistakes. We don't even know what's happened in the past. We can pretty well judge whether they're good savers or spenders by how much money they have.
Yep.
So managing finances, the damage is huge. So Mike, going forward, are you going to do more or less yourself?
I'm probably going to do less because a lot of things I used to just take on myself. I'm going to start putting things through that test scenario and see if it makes sense to actually do it myself or if it makes sense to delegate that to a professional.
I'm already a convert. That brings us to the end of another week. This is Rob and Mike with Think Smart from the McClelland Financial Group of Assante Capital Management.